Hey, it's Jason here, and if you've been interested in buying a profitable seven-figure business without using any of your own money for the down payment, then listen closely. For those of you who are extremely committed to this idea, perhaps you've been watching my content for a while, you've been studying mergers and acquisitions for a while, perhaps you're already a business owner who has ideas about buying other businesses in your local area, or perhaps you want to acquire other types of businesses in your local area, other different sectors within your local area. If you've been playing around with this idea of buying businesses, and really if you're to that point where you want to just lock in, get laser beam focused, and learn from somebody who's done this actively and who's consulted others to do it successfully, then listen very closely. Those of you who know me know that I started buying businesses back in 2019. I've made multiple seven-figure acquisitions at this point that have included business acquisitions as well as real estate acquisitions. But I think what's more important as far as what I've done is, one, I've documented my whole story on YouTube. You can literally go watch me when I was broke without any money, and you can see how I have ascended in my career. So in other words, I have a track record that speaks for itself and that's documented. But even more importantly than that, I've helped a lot of people at this point. I'm trying to think how many. I literally can't even count. You can go to my testimonial section on my website and you can start reading some of them. I've helped people buy healthcare businesses, beauty businesses, service businesses, real estate. We've done a lot of different kinds of deals, the students that I've worked with, that have worked with me and that I've helped. And at this point, what I've really gotten down to is the perfect science for how I can provide the very most valuable advice and the very most valuable consulting to clients that I work with. You see, when I started doing consulting, I would work with clients once a month, the last Sunday of every month. And some of you, maybe a couple of my clients watching this, know that I do a Zoom call every last Sunday of the month. And that has worked well. We've certainly got student results there. Again, students there have bought from vet businesses to healthcare businesses to auto body repair shops to all kinds of different businesses, right? But I found that the success rate was not quite as high as what I wanted it to be. And often students would go through that program, but then they would fall off the wagon and not get that first down. And it really bothered me. And so I went to the other extreme and I started doing weekly consulting. And this is something I launched more recently. And the results have been a lot better in the weekly program. It costs more, but it's been a lot better. The results have. The only problem there is, candidly, the consulting is too frequent to the point where my students weren't able to get a lot of progress between each call because you need a couple of weeks to really go implement something big. If I give you a great piece of advice, hey, do this next, you're going to need, realistically, even if you're hustling, you're really going to need about 10 business days to go out and execute on that game plan. And so what I was finding with the weekly consulting is my students weren't getting the very most leverage possible, because on the next call, I'm like, okay, how's it going? And they're like, I've made some progress, but they weren't quite to that next step yet where they had a whole new set of questions. And so what I've finally done now is I've optimized the consulting program that I provide for individuals who are really committed to buying businesses. And that's really what I want to share a little bit more about with you. If you're extremely serious about this game of buying businesses, and if you're ready to buy businesses on a discount as we enter the first real recession that we've had since the housing crisis in 2008, this is the first real good buying opportunity we've had in a long time, in more than a decade. That's taking place now. The snowball is just starting to build momentum, and I think it's going to turn to an avalanche of opportunity for individuals who have the courage, the work ethic, and just the sheer grit to get it done. If that sounds like you, and if you want to get some skin in the game, then I would implore you to really talk with my team to start. We do a free consulting call. Some of you know Donna. She works very closely with me, and she is a true pro. We've gotten testimonials about people who have said, hey, I talked to Donna, and then I raised capital. I talked to Donna, and then I did this deal. Donna has her own reviews. My own right-hand individual who works with me with the Jason Paul Rogers Enterprises businesses. She's fantastic. So what I would recommend if you're thinking about working with me is schedule a call with her. And honestly, I tell her, if the person doesn't sound like they have a fairly high likelihood of success, tell them to just go torrent my stuff for free or to go watch my free YouTube and to come back when they're actually ready to rumble. I'm a results guy. I already have my own streams of income. I have multiple streams of income at this point. And, the real net worth I'm building is based on my businesses and the enterprise value that they are generating and creating and growing into and continuing to create. That's where my wealth is being built. This for me is an opportunity to, yes, make some pocket change. And it is a nice extra little stream of income that I get for doing the consulting, but it's a lot of work. I mean, truth be said, I do it because I got my start by investing about $20,000 into my development. Some of you know my story. I went to Scotland to meet an individual who did a bunch of acquisitions back in the 80s and early 90s. I learned a lot from him. Some was perfect, some was less than perfect, but the most important thing I gathered from that experience was putting 20 grand, which was basically almost my last 20 grand, right? So when I actually went out to buy businesses, I was broke. But I don't regret it at all. I think it was a great decision because by putting 20 grand in, I committed to the process. It's Robert Cialdini's commitment consistency theory. Once you start committing down a path, it's very difficult to get yourself off that path. And so by me putting my own hard-earned money in the game, I was committed to the game of buying businesses. And that's another reason I do the consulting, is because, as funny as it sounds, when you pay somebody, such as myself or my business more specifically, and really go all in on a consulting program, and by the way, our consulting program at minimum runs for over 6 months. The longer one goes for over a year. So it's a robust, proper, well-crafted consulting program. But when you pay for something like that, what you're really doing more than anything is you're committing to yourself that you really want to go do this. And you're getting skin in the game. And it's powerful. I attribute the best thing I got out of paying 20 grand was paying 20 grand. Yeah, I learned things. I learned some insights. I learned a bit about finance. I learned some things. I also learned a few things that I had to unlearn. And that was because the individual I was learning from did it back in the 80s and the early 90s. It's why, as an aside, I think I'm the right guy to learn from, because I did a deal just last year. I put a deal under contract last week. It's like I am doing this right now. Okay, so I think that's very important. But it's the skin in the game that actually is probably the most powerful part of all. So with that all being said, if you really want to buy businesses here, and if you're ready to take advantage, then I would highly recommend you schedule a call with Donna. There should be a calendar around this video, or if you go to my website, jasonpaulrogers.com, and you go to the Work with Jason tab, you'll see a calendar. Go there, schedule a time to speak with her, and she's going to ask you some questions, and you should ask her some questions. And the two of you should talk about what you're trying to do, what your goals are, what your history is, what your experiences have been, and what you're trying to achieve going forward. And then, we should talk about whether or not this consulting program that I put on is the right fit. If you're watching this video, it means that you're going to need to be enrolling fairly quickly if you want to work with me in the next couple of months and work for either a 6 or a 12-month period. It's actually a little longer than that, but a minimum of just over 6 months or a little over a year. And that's really it. I don't want to sell you. I don't think you're ready to make a decision right now. What I think you probably need to do is talk to Donna. So schedule the call and we'll see if it's a fit.